Hello, and welcome back to our series on product recommendations. I'm Patrick Murray, and today we're going to be talking about analyzing the performance of your product recommendations and ongoing optimizations. Today is the fifth and final episode in our series on product recommendations. And as I'd mentioned, we're going to talk about how to use the resources in Listrak to analyze performance, and then talk about some additional tips, tricks, optimizations, and testing strategies to constantly move the product recommendations program forward. Each time that you're analyzing your performance of your email program, you should take a look at how the product recommendations are performing. So every time you look at the conversion dashboard or your message activity dashboards within Listrak, keep an eye on the revenue contribution that's coming from product recommendations and click-through rates to see what people are clicking on and how impactful those strategies have been. When analyzing product recs, the KPIs that are the most important are click-through rate, conversion rate, and the percentage of revenue that's attributed to email that's coming from product recommendations. We'll dig into each of those in just a minute. Always keep in mind too, as you're looking at the performance of your product recommendations, if you're not happy with the results, start to ask yourself some questions. Are we showing the product recommendations enough? Are we showing enough products? Are people even able to see or find the product recommendations? Do the images match the site experience? You spend a lot of time merchandising your site. It should be representative of what that site experience is when they're seeing products in the email. What recipes are we using in the merchandise blocks? Does the headline text actually make sense for the campaign and the products that are being shown? And am I even using product recommendations in each campaign? So where to find analytics on your product recommendations? The first place I look is in the conversion dashboard. It's really easy to see how product recommendations are performing by looking at the recommender column in that revenue breakdown section of the conversion dashboard. That dashboard is showing you all of the revenue that's been attributed to the email channel and then the specific campaigns. And the recommender revenue is a subset of the total revenue. So as you can see across the board, all of the revenue that's been attributed to an email campaign and how much of that came from product recommendations. And then you can see it by campaign. If you see zeros in that recommender column, that's usually an indication that there's not a merchandise block or any product recommendations in that campaign. If there are recommendations and there's still zero revenue, that's definitely a flag to go and inspect the recipe strategy and all of the other KPIs that we want to look at. The product recommendations dashboard is going to give you a snapshot of just the product recommendations. So here you can find usage graphs that shows impression delivery and revenue attribution for the entire program, and it breaks it down. You can toggle back and forth between on-site product recommendations and email product recommendations. The channel breakdown will then break it out by the total revenue, total click-through rate, total conversion rate of all of the merchandise blocks, as well as individual line items for each merchandise block. Now, understanding that the product recommendations are a component of the email, and the email is the medium in which you're using to drive traffic back to your website, click-through rate is the most important KPI that I want to assess. So as you can see in that screenshot there, the CTR is highlighted. The way I like to assess it is by sorting that table by total block impressions. So I can see where are the most product recommendations being shown. And if the merchandise block is named appropriately, you should be able to identify which campaign that merchandise block is in, how many impressions were delivered, and then what is that click-through rate. You can also see the conversion rate, which is what happens after someone has clicked. So that is looking at, of all those visits from product recommendations click, how many people converted, and then what was the revenue. So first and foremost, we have to get people to click on the product recommendations, and then the conversion stuff happens after the click. Less frequently, but very important, and a good way to see within your broadcast messages, business as usual, promotional messages, things that you can find in your message activity dashboard. You can click on the clicks KPI, see how many people have clicked, and then it shows you a breakdown of what people have clicked in that message. If your product recommendations clicks are not in your top 10 links that were clicked, you likely need to tweak some things to bring those, more prominently displayed or more relevant product recommendations. We'll look at those things in a minute. As you can see there in this particular example, 3 different item designs, parts of the merchandise block, fall within the top 5 most commonly clicked links. So that's a solid strategy for that particular campaign. So now that you have an idea of where to find the information, like what should you do with it? So always keeping in mind the audience that is receiving the message with product recommendations. What is the campaign? Who is the audience? Why am I sending that message? What should we be showing? What's the content in that message? When you look at the individual campaign performance, folks that are receiving a product browse abandonment message typically click the product recommendations at a much higher rate than in your welcome series or your broadcast promotional messages. The reason being, these are folks that have recently been on your site, they're actively shopping, they looked at a particular product or a category page, but did not purchase it. So perhaps they're not really interested in that product that's featured as the feature item in the message, or they weren't really sure at the category page, they never made it to a product. And you want to use this as an opportunity to show them relevant products based on the information you know about them. Those people are highly engaged, again, because they've been recently on your site, and the product recommendations typically contribute at a much higher rate than some of your other campaigns. In your welcome series, the most common thing people are looking for is what is the coupon code or the incentive that you had offered them for signing up. And those types of pieces of content get clicked at a much higher rate. Plus, they're just starting their shopping journey. They may not know what they're looking for or the products that they're interested in. So there's, an opportunity to inspire some folks, but they don't click at the same rate as the people that were at the product level. And your broadcast promotional messages, typically featuring some promotion that you're running on the site, the product recommendations play an important part and should be included, but you're sending to a very wide audience, and they may be most interested in the incentive or the offer or what's going on your site that day. When looking at how much revenue should product recommendations contribute, somewhere between 8 to 12% of your email revenue should be coming from product recommendations. I use 10% as my benchmark to look and see, are we performing well? The best performing retailers see somewhere between 15 to 20% of their revenue coming from product recommendations, but all of that is relative to your business, the time of year, what other promotions you may be running. But 10% is a good benchmark. And if you're seeing less than 10% of your revenue coming from product recs, you're likely not utilizing them in all campaigns, right? So there may be campaigns where you're not putting a merchandise block, or it's buried too low in the email and folks aren't seeing it, or you need to optimize your recipe strategies. So we'll look at those in just a second as well. So total block impressions and click-through rate in that recommender dashboard is a great way to see, are we serving them? How many are we serving? If you're serving millions of block impressions and you have a small click-through rate, that may be okay. Right? You want to take a look at how much traffic is coming back to the site, and minor adjustments and updates within the strategies you're employing may yield a small click-through rate increase, but that could mean hundreds or thousands of additional sessions coming back to the site. So as you start to identify which levers we should pull, the design and layout is the first thing I would look at. What does the product recommendation grid look like? If it's just a grid of 6 or sometimes 3 products, you may not have enough products that you're promoting. If it's not a representation of what your site looks like or really on brand or the aesthetic that you're looking for, you can work to incorporate new design features or different structures in how you lay out the product recommendations. The examples on the right-hand side show a number of different layouts where you have a single product that you're recommending. And you could use a recipe that's specific to the last product someone browsed or abandoned, or a related item to something that they've recently purchased. And then you can stylize the blocks to match your promotional messages and how you organize different categories or elements of your email design so that it's staggered or structured and highly visible, crisp product images to really draw people's attention to them and entice higher click-through rates. Recipe optimization, we've talked about in other episodes. We talked about it in your broadcast messages, your automated campaigns. Again, understanding who the audience is, What are they going to be seeing? Why are they getting this message? And making sure that your recipe strategies are optimized to each campaign. And then deeper, looking at your product data again. So remembering what we said in the very beginning, the output of the merchandise blocks and the product recommendations is only as good as the data that's going in and the inputs that are informing those algorithms. So utilizing as much of your product data as you possibly can will help enrich the results and the output that your audience is seeing. So using things like brand, collection, category, subcategory, color, style, size, etc., helps you refine and personalize the product recommendations for each recipient. So this concludes our series on product recommendations. I hope you found the content valuable. You can always refer to the Help Center or the Resource Center to review these episodes, and always reach out to your account manager or the strategist on your account for additional questions, updates, training on how to assess and optimize your product recommendation strategy. And thanks for tuning in.